Hi everybody, welcome to the Tales of the Abyss. Today we are going to be delving into the mystery of the Mary Celeste. Now, if you have heard of this story before, it will be interesting to delve into it again and reanalyze it. And if you're new to this mystery, then it's even more better as we'll be discussing what exactly happened to Mary Celeste. So on December 4th of 1872, a stranded ship, a brigantine, was found in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, this was near Azores in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, the ship that found Mary Celeste was named Dei Gratia. I think the pronunciation is right. If it's wrong, you can correct me in the comments. So the Canadian ship Dei Gratia found this ship called Mary Celeste in a strangely seaworthy condition and with a partial sail. Now, they also found that the lifeboat of this ship was missing. And strangely, there was nobody aboard the ship. Upon further inspecting the ship, they found out a logbook. Now, this logbook, as they say, the last entry that was made in it was 10 days before. So, this ship, Mary Celeste, had left from New York for a place called Genoa, but this journey started on November 7th. So, where exactly was the crew? Because one another strange thing that the occupants of the Canadian ship Dei Gratia, they found out that nothing was disturbed. The crew's belongings were intact. There was there were no signs of disturbances in any of the areas of the ship. So what exactly went wrong with it? So I found this mystery very intriguing, and that's why I decided that this should be a part of Tales of the Abyss. So the strange thing about this is that the conditions of the ship, both external and internal, there were not many disturbances, right? You had a missing lifeboat, you have partial sails on the ship, which are hoisted partially, so perhaps it was slowed down a little. There was no disturbances in the crew belongings, nothing was ransacked, so nothing was stolen. So what exactly was going on in this situation? Now, let's take a step back and let's consider that we are in the footsteps of the crew who found this stranded ship. You will be just puzzled, right? What exactly is happening here? So there is nothing disturbed. There is no signs of any robbery, so to speak. There is no sign of ship being destroyed, or there was no signs. One single sign that I do see in various descriptions of this case is that there was at least 3 feet of water in the lower deck of the ship. So perhaps that was the reason why the crew abandoned the ship. And when you consider the fact that the lifeboat was missing, maybe that also adds to this theory that the crew just left in that lifeboat, but nothing was found. Now, who was on this ship? Who were the occupants on the ship? Let's discuss that in a minute. So Mary Celeste consisted of 7 crew members. Now, apart from these 7 crew members, the core occupants of the ship were Captain Benjamin Briggs, who was the captain of the ship, then Sarah Briggs, who was the captain's wife, and then Sophia Briggs, the captain and the wife's 2-year-old daughter. So these are the occupants of the ship. So around 9 or 10 people were in the ship, and none of them were found. Their belongings were undisturbed, and no clue whatsoever about what happened. Did pirates attack the ship? If pirates did attack the ship, then why didn't they take anything from the ship? Now, this ship was carrying many barrels of alcohol from as long as I can gather of about how much I've read this story. It was carrying a lot of alcohol. None of it was stolen. So what exactly happened on this ship? It is still a mystery to this date, and this is what intrigues me. This happened in 1872, and to this day, right, it is around 150 years, it is still a mystery. So this is something that must be discussed, and possibly there is some resolution to it. Maybe now nothing has happened in 150 years, so there are very few chances that this mystery will be solved. The only thing that could have solved this mystery is if we would have got some remains of the crew who was on the ship originally, but none of them have been found. Now, chances are they might have sunk into the ocean, which is a sad possibility. So that's why there is no sign of any of these occupants which we just discussed. So another thing that we need to discuss is there was suspicion on the people who found Mary Celeste, who first found Mary Celeste. Now, as I mentioned, the ship named Dei Gratia was the ship who found Mary Celeste. Now, about this ship, there was David Morehouse, who was the captain of this ship. So he was the first one to discover Mary Celeste. Now, one interesting thing about this ship is that Dei Gratia was also sailing from New York, but it started 8 days after Mary Celeste started its sail. So this captain, David Morehouse, was also a bit surprised on seeing the ship being stranded, because this ship was supposed to reach its destination when they found it, right? So even he found it strange. Now, what happened is, of course, if you are the one at the crime scene, you will be also under suspicion. So this captain was also under suspicion. And there were also many proceedings which happened in court regarding this. There were legal battles regarding this case, and the hearings were inconclusive. There was no definite hearing on this. There was no definite conclusion. Did they have any wrongdoing in this, or they were just plain witnesses? Who knows? Now, this case is a bit too old to be investigated, but from what facts we do have, that's about it. There is no other conclusive fact to point us in any conclusion. We are basically just sailing in the sea of mystery. Now that we did the ship, now that the ship was found, it was not decommissioned immediately. There were a few other journeys that this ship continued with. But again, this ship was exactly not the luckiest ship, because even before this incident occurred, this ship was also facing many other hurdles throughout its journeys. And even after this incident, from what I've read, in 1885, this ship was again wrecked in Haiti. So this ship is really not shaping up to be a very quote unquote lucky charm for these occupants. Now, there are some the sailors have some form of superstitions regarding these, that some of the ships actually are unlucky and they tend to stay away from such ships. So perhaps it's not entirely false and baseless for sailors to have such superstitions around these kind of incidents, but who knows. So coming back to the discussion, where so what exactly happened, let's discuss what exactly might have happened to this ship and its occupants. Now there are many theories floating around. Obviously we are going to discuss them one by one. Now the most practical conclusion to this, or most practical theory that we can start with, is there was mutiny. Now mutiny is a scenario where the crew of the ship sort of revolt against the captain, I think, if I'm right. So maybe that was the case. Now there were 7 crew members apart from the family, which I just mentioned earlier. Apart from the captain and his family, there were 7 crew members, and from what I have researched on this, all the crew members were from different ethnicities. So maybe that is what added to the tension. Now I don't know about it. These are just some theories which we are floating and discussing, like why Mary Celeste was found in the condition that it was. So first is obviously mutiny. Maybe some of the crew members decided that no, let's revolt, let's take the ship for ourselves and just do as we want to do and not obey the captain. But the thing is, there was nothing inside the ship that was misplaced. Now again, I don't know, I wasn't there, and you don't know because you weren't there, but based on the witness testimonies, what we do find is that there was nothing disturbed in it. Nothing. So I'm sure even if the hearings would have happened, they would have investigated all these aspects, and even they found that, well, yes, the condition doesn't look like something nefarious has happened on the ship. So when you add that to the picture, mutiny seems sort of a far stretch, though it could have happened. Maybe they just rearranged all the things to look clean. You know how some of the criminals tend to clear out the crime scene to the best of their abilities. Maybe that happened. Maybe mutiny did happen, and so that is the first theory. Now second theory is insurance fraud. Now this is also something of a far-fetched theory, that maybe because of insurance that this accident sort of was framed in such a way that it should look like an accident, right? Now what would have happened is, maybe, now this is no disrespect to the victims, the people who have disappeared. Now many people have theorized that maybe the captains of the ship Dei Gratia and Mary Celeste, both of them had a co-conspiracy where they said, okay, let's get rid of the ship somehow. Just sort of present a picture that an accident has happened in the sea, and then let's claim the insurance money from this, or whatever the compensation that we can get from the insurance company. So that is one of the possible aspects that it is discussed regarding this case. But one thing that really shoots down this theory is that in 1885, the captain, like I mentioned, he tried to do this. In 1885, a different captain insured the cargo, and then he purposefully dashed into the coast of Haiti. I think he did that so that he could claim insurance, but that fraud was caught, right? So that attempt of insurance fraud was caught. So if in 1885 a captain who tried to commit this sort of fraud was caught, so it is very unlikely that Captain Briggs, who was not found on Mary Celeste, maybe he didn't commit the fraud. So this theory also is not that plausible. Now the third theory. Third theory suggests that maybe Captain Morehouse, who was in Dei Gratia, the one who saw Mary Celeste, maybe he got rid of all the occupants of Mary Celeste. And then he presented it in a way that, oh, we found this ship stranded. And here's the remains of the ship. We brought the ship back to the coast, and now you do what you have to do the proceedings, and let us away. Maybe that is one of the theories. But then again, if Captain Morehouse did commit these kind of crimes, then I'm sure there must have been some form of evidence to do that. But it is one of the plausible theories that he might be the one, or he might have used some of his crew to attack the crew members of Mary Celeste and make it look as if it is a mysterious stranded event, right? So that's just one of the theories. Now, next theory is something that we discussed at the very beginning. Maybe it were the pirates. Now during that time there has been some rumors that Riffian pirates were roaming around the waters of Morocco. Now that is one of the theories that is floating around, which I found when I researched about this topic. But if that, like, I've already shot down this theory that if this was an act of piracy, why was everything undisturbed? Why weren't the goods taken away? Because there were many expensive trinkets in Mary Celeste. There were many rare things, rare belongings in this ship, because maybe the crew weren't that rich. Captain Briggs and his family were sort of rich, right? For a captain, you expect the man to be at least sufficiently rich to have some precious ornaments or these sort of things on him while traveling. So again, this theory also doesn't hold up. It is possible. Maybe they left some things and they took some things. I don't know. Or maybe they just attacked for the thrill of it and kidnapped all the occupants. Who knows at this point, right? But if you go by the basic law or the basic mindset behind piracy is that you plunder, you loot, right? But nothing was looted. So again, that theory is also cancelled. Now, one of the most interesting, now I find this personally interesting theory is that waterspouts might be responsible for the disappearance of this ship's crew. So the crew of Mary Celeste might have just abandoned the ship because waterspouts might be about to strike this ship, right? Now, one reason why I don't believe this theory is because if waterspouts might have hit the ship, maybe it would have been in a worse condition, right? But again, what adds credence to this theory, why I think that this theory is more plausible, is because Mary Celeste's ship was found flooded with water, right? There was around 3 feet of water in the ship, and the sails were also sort of ragged in the ship. So these two aspects do add credence to this theory that maybe waterspouts were the reason that Mary Celeste was abandoned by its occupants, right? And this area around Azores, what I have found is that, just a second, I'm trying to see where exactly is Azores. So Azores, as I'm seeing here, is that it is just around Portugal, I think. And this region is somewhat infamous for these kind of occurrings where waterspouts, all these things do affect the sailors, right? So yeah, this is why I think this is a more plausible theory, that waterspouts might have been one of the reasons. Why do I say one of? Because waterspouts alone cannot be attributed to the disappearance. Yes, the physical condition in which the ship was found, for that we can blame waterspouts. But where are its occupants? Were they tossed out of the ship? If so, then why weren't there remains found? Maybe technology during that time was not that advanced. Maybe that's the reason, and nobody would want to invest any money in finding for civilians, because in the end they were civilians, right? They weren't some high value officials, so maybe the search was not even attempted. So that is one of the possibilities why water sprouts is not the only reason. Water sprout may be the precursor of it. Let me put it this way: maybe water sprouts were the precursor to the occupants of Mary Celeste just abandoning the ship. They might have seen, okay, water sprouts are appearing in the distance along with storms, so let us just try to abandon the ship. And when you connect this dot with the fact that the sailboat, the lifeboat, was also missing, so it makes sense that yes, they were fleeing something. That also explains the, you know, clean condition in which the ship was found. Nothing was taken. If nothing was taken, it means either nobody had the time to take it or nobody thought to take it. It only happens in emergency situations, right? So again, water sprouts is one of the plausible reasons. Now, some people say that because, now I don't know personally how true this is, or I don't have any scientific background to conclude anything on this, but many people say that it might have been from an explosion. Now, as we discussed before, that Mary Celeste was sailing with a lot of many barrels of alcohol, right? So alcohol has a tendency to produce fumes, or maybe by when now they were stored, the alcohol was stored in wooden barrels. Now sometimes what happens is those two barrels might be there might be some friction in between those two barrels. When you are sailing in a ship, the ship tends to wobble a lot, right? So maybe through that wobbling, the barrels would have this would have caused friction between the two barrels, and that might have resulted in some form of explosion. But again, the barrels were still intact, right? Barrels were intact. There was no considerable damage on the condition, on the output condition of the barrels. So again, this theory doesn't hold water. Now what they did find in the investigation was that the barrels were damaged. Some of the barrels were damaged, but this damage might have made the captain to just make a calculation that okay, there's a lot of fumes building up, or there is a possibility of damage in the hull, so we might have to abandon the ship due to a fear of explosion, right? So that is one of the plausible theories which I found are quite plausible. I personally think water sprouts could be the reason. That would have made more sense. And along with that, this fear, this constant sword hanging over your neck of an explosion, and you're carrying many barrels of alcohol in your ship, I think those two reasons seem very, very plausible, that okay, these reasons might have made the captain just abandon the ship. And again, you do need to remember that the captain was not alone. He was with his family and his child as well. So if you are with a family, you have to think from that perspective, that okay, if my family is in danger, I would have to take any means necessary to just keep them safe and also keep myself safe, right? So that seems like a accepted, in my opinion, a much more acceptable reason that yes, this might have occurred there. Now, so what another thing is that, right, so we spoke about all the theories, right? We spoke about how mutiny might have been one of the causes, maybe insurance fraud, maybe attacking by their rescuers itself, right? The ones who found the ship, Captain Morehouse from Dei Gratia, maybe he attacked Mary Celeste and then presented it as, oh, well, we just found the ship. Then another reason that we discussed is might be pirates, but which personally I don't think this theory holds up. Then we spoke about water sprouts, and then we spoke about the explosion. Maybe the alcohol might have caused an explosion, right? Now, one another cause that I personally think might have also contributed to this is that the captain might genuinely be lost, right? We are all humans. He was a human. So maybe the captain was lost. He was actually not aware, and he didn't have any idea where to take the ship next, where to navigate next. That is also plausible, because if you are in a sea, if you are in a stormy sea, in a stormy ocean, and you have these water sprouts coming in, you have the risk of explosion, or any one of those, or both of those dangers looming over you, and then you have to keep your family safe. Maybe you lose the sense of direction. If so many things are happening all at once, then it makes sense that maybe captain just lost direction. He didn't knew where to go next. So maybe they were trying to sort of recalibrate their position, sense where they were and where they wanted to go next. That is one of the plausible reasons as well. But then again, if they were doing that, then why did they abandon ship, right? So that is some of the possibilities. So that is why I think it is not one of these things. Many things acted in coordination to make this sad event happen, right? So what would have happened now? Let me tell you my opinion. What would have happened, right? Water sprouts or alcohol explosion. Between these two things, any one aspect would have happened, combined with the fact that the captain might have lost direction due to storms, right? So weather might have played a very bad role in this, and weather combined with the risk of explosion in the barrels. Now these two factors, if combined, they can really add to the scare factor as a captain, and you have your family with you. So these two aspects can really ramp up the factor of anxiety, and they can just make you take rash decisions, right? And if you are in middle of a stormy weather and you have to reach somewhere, and the weather is not looking conducive, plus there is a risk of explosion and or water sprouts, right? This makes sense. And if they found water in the ship, so maybe the ship was also drowning. So they thought that, okay, the ship is now not drowning, sorry, sinking. My bad. So if the ship is sinking, let's just abandon it, right? They might have overestimated the danger of the breach in the hull. That might also be one of the reasons why the ship was just abandoned. And then there were no, so that was about the ship, right? That is about Mary Celeste, right? This was about Mary Celeste, the ship. The sailboat was not found. The lifeboat, in which the supposed lifeboat which was missing, that boat was never found. Now, in my opinion, that is the key to solving this mystery, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. Because when you find the boat, when you find the remains of this lifeboat, you will find something connected to the occupants of it, right? And then the mystery becomes easy to demystify, right? Then you can connect the dots that, okay, we found the lifeboat, then we found some belongings. Now let's match it to the belongings of Captain Briggs, who was supposedly on Mary Celeste, who was the captain of Mary Celeste at that time. So once we find the lifeboat, then we can crack the mystery. But the lifeboat is missing. So the only thing that makes sense in this scenario is that maybe the lifeboat was also sunk. They were lost on that lifeboat. So they abandoned the ship, Mary Celeste. Then they used the lifeboat to just abandon the ship and go on their own voyage. And in the middle of the voyage, again, they lost the direction, and then they were stranded without food, without supplies. Because another thing to note is that Mary Celeste was found with all its supplies intact. And by supplies, I mean food supplies. So there was no emergency in the ship where there was lack of food. They had sufficient food for 6 months, right? 6 more months. So again, maybe they would have just starved, which is sad to think. There was no food on the lifeboat, or whatever little they could take was exhausted. So then they were left starving in the middle of a sea, in the middle of an ocean, and they couldn't reach their destination. They even couldn't find where to go, where to sail next in their tiny lifeboat, which is sad to think in hindsight what could have happened to that family, right? So these were some of the uh, realistic theories when it comes to the disappearance of the crew of Mary Celeste, right? Now, of course, when you are speaking about these mysteries, the disappearances at sea, or any kind of mystery, so to speak, there are always outlandish theories. So one of the theories that is floating around is that, of course, you guessed it right, Cthulhu monster, right? Sea monsters. So we are not talking about normal animals. We are just talking about fantastical monsters, right? Sea monsters, Cthulhu monsters. Now, again, this is not something that I want to make fun of, but these are some of the theories that maybe a sea monster sort of just made them disappear in a snap, right? One of the theories. Now, another theory is about aliens. Maybe aliens came and, just sucked them inside their ship and kidnapped them and probed them, as as it is discussed in the pop culture as well. These are the outlandish theories which are going afloat, that maybe aliens and or maybe sea monsters. Now, of course, that is not the case, but again, these were some of the things. Why I discussed these outlandish theories as well? Because, well, every theory is a theory, right? How funny or how outlandish it is, a theory is a theory, and we as audience, we have to sort of, not as audience, we as somebody who's observing this phenomenon, we have to sort of discuss all the theories that we can to reach to a conclusion, and maybe, just maybe, have a resolution to this mystery, because in the end there were lives involved in this, right? And a family lost their lives in this. But the mystery itself, the intrigue surrounding this ship Mary Celeste, is also very strong, because the very first time that I read about this case, it was very intriguing to me, to just sort of, it just brought a sort of, it invoked a sort of wonder in me, like, what exactly happened? How can something of this scale happen and not be resolved? Because there have been many disappearances, but many of these disappearances do get solved over a period of time. But it has been 150 years and still we don't have any resolution to this mystery. So that's about it from me, from this show. So guys, if you have some of your own thoughts on this, if you have some of your own theories on what exactly happened to Mary Celeste, do let me know in the comments. I will be happy to discuss it with you. I put forth all the points that I had to say. You put forth all your points that you have to say. We will have a healthy discussion around this topic. And it will be great to have some of your own insights on this. Maybe if you know something that I didn't discuss in this, please do mention it in the video. And this is an unscripted video, so I just want to apologize if I fumbled a lot in this, but this is just some heart-to-heart discussion that I wanted to have with all of you, and sort of go on this journey to resolve all these mysterious disappearances. See, ocean is always a mystery to me. Ocean always has been a mystery to me. It is so vast. We don't know the half of it, guys. There is a quote or something, right, that we are exploring the moon, but we hardly know what's in the Mariana Trench. We still don't know what's lurking beneath our oceans, and we are exploring the moon. So this aspect intrigues me, and that is why I thought to just discuss about this case and sort of just, go heart to heart without any script, and just break it down aspect by aspect with you guys. Do let me know how did you find this video. If you want more such videos, because I would love to do more of these and discuss as many cases as I can, and maybe we can reach some logical conclusions to this, along with also discussing some outlandish theories, because let's be honest, who doesn't love a good uh, fantastical story, right, about cryptids and all those things, right? Even I love those things. We all are guilty of that. So anyways, that is it about this video from Tales of the Abyss, right? I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care, stay happy. Okay, I'll meet you in the next video.